Diana Abbott.
Mr. Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak to News Clause 20, which has been moved by my friend the Home Secretary. As has been said throughout this debate, the first duty of Parliament is the safety of the realm. And it is because I believe that these proposals on 42 days detention will make us less safe, not more safe, that I oppose them. I don't take terrorism lightly. I'm a Londoner. I heard the last major IRA bombing at Canary Wharf from my kitchen window in East London where I live. Like thousands of Londoners, I waited for the call early in the morning that assured me that friends and family on their way to work and school had not been caught up in those bombings. So I won't take lectures from ministers about not taking terrorism seriously. And I do not believe, as ministers continue to insist, that there is some sort of trade-off between our liberties and the safety of the realm. I believe that what makes us free is what makes us safe, and what makes us safe is what will make us free. And let me ask the House to reflect for just a few minutes on how we got here. 2 years ago, this House emphatically rejected the proposal that we should go as far as 90 days. Now, I'm not a person that talks very much about custom and practice in Parliament, but it is custom and practice that when the government has lost a proposal in a Parliament, they do not bring back a similar proposal in that same Parliament. And do you know why? Well, my friends in the Whip's office now know why. Because if you lose it in one Parliament, it is a clue that you don't have the votes. And why the government machinery has devoted 10 days to bone-crunching pressure on potential rebels is because, in reality, they do not have the vote. And for ministers to go on the media and say they have won the arguments, they may win the votes, but they have emphatically not won the arguments. So 2 years ago, the House rejected the 90-day proposal. It should never have come back. And all of this high drama has been caused by bringing back something that actually the House had originally rejected. And I would remind the House as well that some of us, and I voted for 28 days, we only voted for 28 days under duress. We believe that by voting for 28 days, that would finish the debate for this Parliament, and it would provide an upper limit. Some of us were unwilling to go as far as 28 days. And that is why some of us are so upset the government's come back now, as far as we're concerned, reneging on a tacit understanding that 28 days would finish the debate on this issue for this Parliament. Now, why has the government come back with this? Clearly, speculation has raged on my side of the House on quite what has moved the Prime Minister to take this dangerous course. Some people say that he wants to try and do something which Tony Blair couldn't do. Some people say he's driven by the polls. Some people say last year he saw an article in The Sun which said he was soft on terrorism, and he's been going down this path ever since. But what I say is that in reality, despite all the Treasury Bank has to say, nothing has changed since 2 years ago. The arguments they used then about computers and complications are the arguments they're using now. And let me just say, if ministers will spare the House this argument about decrypting computers, because the law exists to deal with people that willfully refuse to decrypt computer evidence. So they came back with a proposal that the House had rejected 2 years ago. And interestingly, when they came back, it took them several months to come up with a time limit. Was it going to be 29? Was it going to be 30? Was it going to be 40? At one time, someone was offered to put our hand in a hat and draw out a number for the Home Secretary. And you know why they didn't have a number of days? Because this is not an objective, evidence-driven act. This is the purest politics. This is about polls. This is about positioning. This is about putting the Conservative Party in the wrong place on terrorism. And I put it to colleagues that we shouldn't pay ducks and drakes with our civil liberties in order to get a few months' advantage in opinion polls. So this is how we've got here. a process which was wrong in terms of the practical politics of it, a process which was wrong in terms of the motivation. And what is problematic about this proposal? Let me remind the House. The security services have unusually gone public and said they are not calling for this. The Director of Public Prosecutions unusually has gone public and said he is not calling for that. And I remind the House, he is the prosecuting authority. And we hear about the police. We're going to hear from ministers about the police later. The police are split on this. And let me say to the House, we've heard about Sir Ian Blair, whose days may be numbered under the former member for Henley, but hey, that's life. But we've heard about Sir Ian Blair. But let me point out to the House that the most senior Muslim policeman in the Metropolitan Police Force, Tarek Ghafoor, has said privately, emphatically, that he believes the risk to community cohesion of this proposal is not worth any marginal operational advantage. And it is alleged, I use the word alleged because I don't want to abuse parliamentary privilege, that he was called in by Sir Ian Blair and asked to consider his position. The police are split on this. Let us hear no more about the police as a whole being behind this proposal.
Would you take account of the fact that even those chief police officers who have expressed some kind of support have expressed it in terms of it could be workable rather than it is desirable? Everything could be workable. Buchenwald, Dachau, they were all workable, but were hardly desirable.
Yes, they said it could be workable in the future. But let me make a point, because much of it, there are some very clever lawyers in the chamber today. And it seems to me that much of the debate has got locked into the legalities and the technicalities. And I come at this actually from a slightly different angle. It seems to me that 6 weeks detention without knowing what you are there for, and therefore having no notion about whether you are able to get out without being charged, 6 weeks detention is in itself coercive. I said it earlier, but we saw in the big miscarriages of justice cases what people will sign after only a few weeks. And it seems to me that 6 weeks detention and the possibility that my old friend Mo for Leicester East is trying to float of compensation will actually put pressure on the police to charge. And let me pause here and talk about the compensation package. Some of my colleagues who, for other reasons, might be expected to be opposed to this because of its effects on our communities, have been seduced by this compensations package. Well, I've read the letter. The letter talks about going away and looking into it, and that this compensation package might be implemented. Let me put it to the House. How will it be sustainable to compensate Muslims for being held for over 28 days, when the police have held them completely lawfully, and not compensate others of my constituents, of whatever religion or ethnicity, who've been held for 7, 8, 9 days and not charged? This compensation package will not survive scrutiny by the courts. And I put it to honourable friends, if you want to vote for the government because you want to be loyal to the Prime Minister in his time of trial, do that. No one will think the less of you for that. But don't vote for the government on the basis of a shoddy compensation package which will not stand up and will never come into being, in my view.